So just checking your vocabulary, you all know what a lock-in is, right? Okay, I see one puzzled face. A lock-in is when adults who have lost their senses completely agree to spend the night at the church with all the youth in the congregation. And there's a tradition here that reaches probably back to the Thessalonians, that whenever there is a lock-in, there is a game played called Underground Church. Imagine it. All the lights in the church are out. One or two people are it. And the people who are it go in search of all the other youth who are hiding somewhere in the church in the dark, although this game is such that the people hiding are always on the move in the dark. It's a version of hide and seek on steroids. No one wants to be caught. I think there's a lot of laughing. Maybe they catch each other by the sounds of their voice. I don't know. Well, now when I was a kid, old man that I am, when I was a kid, we also had lock-ins, but I was a Baptist, and we were not allowed to have fun like Presbyterians are able to have today. I'm not kidding. Even a game had to have a spiritual lesson. We called underground church catacombs. Catacombs. Yeah, we learned that in church history, the early Christians hid themselves in the catacombs of Rome to avoid rest. If you don't know, catacombs are underground burial chambers. Yes, we were Baptist. Our youth group played in an imaginary mausoleum. All the lights in the church, yes, all the lights of the church were out, but the its in our game were mock Roman soldiers with mock torches. Think flashlights with, what's that light paper? With tissue paper, right? All wrapped around it. We had, the guards had flashlights with tissue paper, and they had mock wooden swords. The pivotal question was, they were looking for Christians. And if you were confronted by the Roman guard seeking disciples of Jesus, the pivotal question was, would there be sufficient evidence to convict you? The lesson was all about reputation. If you had the right one, the Roman guard would find you hiding in the catacombs, and they would ask your name. And when you said, "I'm Lee Sackett," the guards would shout out, "Lee Sackett, we know you! Off with your head, you Christian!" In our version of hide and seek, everyone wanted to be caught. As pious sounding as it is, we all knew it was right. It was the right thing that people should see Jesus in us. We all wanted to be guilty as charged. Catacombs. You might think of this sermon as a variation of that game. We're going to think about our reputations. But I want to do more than that. I also want to explore what kind of reputation the world today might need from us. The Thessalonians, as we'll see, had a certain reputation among the churches and in parts of the Roman world. And it occurred to me this week that their reputation fit the time. And then I began to wonder what kind of reputation fit our time. What kind of reputation would the world wish for the church to have? So, reputations. There are so many ways that we might be known. For example, in Hastings, Nebraska, there was a Sears repairman. This was in the day when Sears had a fleet of at-home repair trucks, and the people actually came to your house. About this man, they would say the very first thing, oh, he would give you the shirt off his back. That was the first thing you thought of. He took care of everyone's repairs, not only for Sears, but in the neighborhood. If he had time, he would come to see you. If he had anything to give, he would offer it, and it seemed like he always had something, either time or a good deed, something to offer. Hardworking, generous. His reputation was well known. On the other hand, there's a pastor in North Carolina, a Presbyterian pastor. I'm not going to tell you his name, but you might recognize his type. Whenever there is a presbytery meeting and this pastor stands up and walks to the microphone, there is a silent but palpable groan. The collective body tenses up, eyes roll. Everyone is stiff. No one except this pastor alone wants to hear what he has to say, because he is always angry and he is always critical. If anything positive slips out of his mouth, it's only so that he can be critical of something else. His reputation, as we would say, goes before him. This is also a made-up name, but you may recognize the person. Not here at Raleigh Court. I know better than that. Consider Sarah's made-up name. Consider Sarah's reputation. If you want to get the word out about something or someone, just let Sarah overhear you. She's faster than Twitter. And everybody knows it. Hardworking and generous, angry, negative, and critical, a town gossip. There are all kinds of ways to be known. And by the way, if you haven't already started thinking about your own reputation, you can do that now. Do you have one? And would you want one? What would it be? What would you like it to be? Congregations have reputations too, don't they? Or at least they can. Mission-minded, prophetic, great music. Mitch, that's what needs to be heard from here. Stellar preaching, explosive growth. All kinds of ways for a congregation to be known. And again, if you haven't already started thinking about Raleigh Court Presbyterian, you can do that now too. Do you have a reputation? What would people say about you outside the church? These questions about reputation grow from Paul's letter to the first letter to the Thessalonians. As Paul knew them, their reputation was a witness to Jesus Christ. Just by the way they were known, as Paul put it, the word of the Lord sounded forth. They were famous. And the thing is, because they were famous, Jesus was better known. Their reputation was their witness. Paul spells it out in his letter. He says, they're well known for works of faith, labors of love, steadfastness in hope, the power and conviction of their conversion, and finally for their generous hospitality to Paul and his companions. In other words, the people of the Thessalonian church were people of action. Their trust in Jesus, their affirmations about who Jesus was, both issued forth in works of love and compassion. They were known because lives were being changed, lives were being transformed, and they could be counted on for a bed and a good meal if you ever needed a home base, a place from which to share the good news. And everyone knew that in the face of hardship and persecution, the Thessalonians did not give up. In the face of hardship, they persisted, they persevered, they would not give up their hope. Today, I don't know that they would get any attention at all. Probably because every church in the world today would advertise itself as the way they were. Every church today, by its own word, is full of hope, love, and faith, ministries that are life-changing. Today, those are churchy words. They roll off our back, don't they? But in the ancient world, in the ancient Roman Empire, religions were not known for their power or their convictions. Religions did not have ethical requirements. Ancient religions didn't change how you treated your neighbor, and ancient religions were not based on deep convictions. Religions in ancient Rome were contractual. You scratched your God's back so that your God would scratch yours. You needed protection in a harsh world. You needed some advantage. You needed an edge. And so, to get what you thought your God might give you, maybe, if your God noticed, you said the right words, using the right prayer, coupled with the right sacrifice properly done. And if you got all the externals just right, you might get something from your God. And to play it safe, you usually had many to choose from. A community of faith, hope, and love. A community changing lives, bringing people together. Now, in the ancient world, that reputation, coming from a religious community, would be unexpected. A religion that powerfully changed lives from the inside out would have drawn people to it. And in the case of the Thessalonians, Paul said, it drew people to Jesus Christ. The word of the Lord sounded forth. So, I wonder what would make Jesus famous today if the world could depend upon our reputation. What would we need to be? What would we need to be known for so that people would want to know more about Jesus? Some possibilities to consider. All of these, by the way, come out of the week's headlines. You'll hear the echo. What if people said about us, about the church, oh, the Church of Jesus Christ, you know what unites them is so much more powerful than anything that could divide them. The church, you can't drive a wedge between them. My goodness, but they stick together. I don't need to convince you, do I, that anger and hatefulness and divisiveness are the water we swim in or the air that we breathe, the cultural climate that is choking us to death and turning us against each other. Violently so. Fearfully so. Do you realize not only are mass shootings commonplace, do you know that it's only taken a week's time and it's already fading? It's already fading from our minds. Just a couple of news cycles. What if the church, what if Jesus could become famous because we demonstrate over and over and over and over again how we manage hot topics, controversial issues, profound differences, even political differences, all the time? Truth be told, you know how we manage differences now? We just don't talk about them. That's the truth. But what if we were known for our openness? What if we had a reputation for being at peace with one another because of our common loyalty to Jesus Christ? I don't know. Do you think that might draw some attention? Or what if Jesus could become better known because we in the church, throughout the church, were as diverse as our country is? What if every congregation was multiracial? And what if different educational backgrounds were all equally at home in our worship, in our fellowship, in our teaching, and so on? What if no one knew what anybody else's economic status was, or if they did know, they wouldn't care because the rich and the poor and the middle and everybody was regarded in, well, the same way? And what if, because of our commitment to each other, this diverse body that we would be, that we were constant vocal champions to fight race, to fight racism, and to advocate for economic development, not just for a few, but for everybody. I go to a lot of rural churches and rural communities these days. There is not much racial diversity in our small rural communities, but my goodness, do you know that rural America has been left behind? What if we fought just as hard for their economic development as we do our own? I think the word of the Lord would sound forth more clearly if it were so. This last one will be a stretch. But just what if? What if the church were well and widely known for its stewardship of creation? For our stewardship of the earth? I mean, what if we all kept gardens and cared about land management and renewable energy and, yes, climate change? In recent weeks, I've seen articles about the world's water supply, and the world's food supply, rising oceans, more threatening storms, all of which will impact the poorest people of the earth first. Reliable scientists keep sounding the alarm. Now, I'll be honest with you. I have a 2-year-old granddaughter now since I last met you. Amelia, if you want to know, she's the most precious child in the world. I got to tell you, climate change has become a little more existential for me now. I'm unsure of the world my granddaughter is growing up in and will be an old person in. And I know for a fact that young people, I know for a fact that there are so many middle school and high school kids that are very fretful about our adult inaction. They hear the same news that we do. And we're in the driver's seat for now. What if Jesus, the Lord of creation, we call him, what if the Lord of creation was better known because we, the church, would not give up our hope in calling for better management, better stewardship of the earth? Do you know what the first commandment of the Bible is? I'm not talking about in Exodus or Deuteronomy. I'm talking about in the first chapter of Genesis, the first directive of God to the human family. When God made humankind, Genesis says, God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion. This is the key word, have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. To have dominion is to make a domicile of the earth. It's not to conquer it, it's to make a home with it. What if the Church of Jesus Christ consistently and constantly loved the earth as a home that God has given to us? There are so many ways the church could be known for Jesus. See, our reputation is our witness. And people believe not so much what they hear anymore, but what they see. So what does the world believe about Jesus on account of what the world sees about us? The word of the Lord needs to sound forth. It needs to be seen and heard. For Jesus. Amen.